Now it's time for our first panel. It's a really important panel, but before I introduce them, I want to say something very important. What we're doing today is we're echoing, we're paralleling, we're mirroring what Qatar's been talking about in the news. Qatar always says it's all about dialogue. It's all about talking things through. It's okay for us to disagree on different things and still be friends. That's something that Hamid was just saying. I mean, I know in my own home, growing up, I disagreed with my mother and father. Didn't make me love them any less. So if you can disagree with your own parents and family and still live under one roof, I think it's okay for us to have different stances in a country and still live all together on this earth. Do you agree? I think so, right? Yeah. And so we have a very interesting panel. I'd like you here to welcome you all for what promises to be a fascinating discussion about the role of old and new media in the Qatar GCC crisis, a subject I'm sure you're all familiar with. Now, social media is an integral part in our daily lives. On average, we spend over 4 hours a day just consuming digital content. And I don't know about you guys, I don't even watch TV as much, I only just watch YouTube. Now, traditional media, on the other hand, is in a decline. And when we say traditional media, I think even our definition of traditional media is changing, and that's why it becomes difficult to know what's traditional and what's not. So to me, what I consider traditional media today is a banner on a website. That's traditional media to me. But that's because today all of us influencers were communicating messages in different ways. Now, I'm talking about creating snaps, I'm talking about product placement, I'm talking about the videos that we do that have those subtle undertones. To me, that's what normal media is. And that's where we need to find out if people like Elizabeth, people like Dima, and of course Sheikh Saif agree with that point of view. So of course, coming on stage, I would like to welcome Sheikh Saif from the Government Communications Office. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about his institution. He's the director of the Prime Minister's office and has been the director of the GCO here in Qatar since 2015. The Government Communication Office, or GCO, coordinates communications across Qatar's government and public-funded sector. They work closely with local, regional, and international media, interest groups, and general public, and others to provide a platform to tell Qatar's story. Please, everyone, welcome Sheikh Saif to the stage. And I think what's also very interesting about this panel discussion, I should say this, and I hope he doesn't mind, but how many countries in the Middle East would have government officials sitting here with us, influencers, having this dialogue? And I think that's what makes Qatar special. Yeah. We also have Elizabeth Linder, who is the founder and CEO of the Conversational Century, and among other things, the founder of Facebook's Politics and Government program for the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. She advises heads of state, government officials, executive management teams, and civil society leaders and on changing patterns of conversational and leadership in more than 40 countries across the US, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. So please welcome her on stage. And also, finally, we have Dima Khatib, the managing director of AJ+. Dima joined Al Jazeera in 1997 as a broadcast journalist in the Al Jazeera Doha newsroom. In 18 years, Dima has reported from over 30 countries, interviewing presidents and people from over those 30 countries and more. In 2012, Dima was classified as the most connected woman on Twitter in the Middle East. Please welcome her on stage. Everyone should have a microphone on their seat. If they don't, we can share. Sure that they are on and off. And I have to say that I'm a very big fan of AJ+. I love AJ+ a lot.
Thank you. You follow us in English, Arabic, or Spanish?
Oh,
you didn't know we had Spanish?
I didn't know we had Spanish.
Right.
I follow in English on Facebook.
Okay,
Yeah.
you need to follow us in Arabic and Spanish as well.
Okay, so you heard that, guys. Are there any Spanish speakers here in the room?
¿Alguien habla español por aquí? Wow.
Ah, there you go.
Okay, you need to follow us in español. AJ Plus Español on Facebook and on Twitter.
So I'll give you each just a quick chance to introduce yourselves. Let me just quickly lock this iPad. So I'm going to start with, I hope you don't mind, with Sheikh Saif. Just really quickly, if you could introduce what the GCO is all about and why are you here today?
First of all, thank you, Khalifa, for having us and for organizing this in, I think, 10 days, I think. So thank you. And Dima, just to add, I think you have a French also coming out soon.
He knows all of our secrets. Yes, French is coming out soon, inshallah.
Just want to say thank you all for coming, and also to tell you the GCO, of course, the Government Communications Office, has been established now for almost 2 years. We have a few different roles. Our first role, of course, is to communicate internally between the different entities, between the different ministries. And our second role, of course, is to communicate this message from our government to the public and to the media. And the third point, of course, which you're seeing a lot these days, our name out in the media, is communicating to the media. And we decide these different ways of communication, whether it's the minister who's going to go and talk, whether it's our office, whether dividing the work, is all dependent on the topic. So this is just a general background, of course, of the GCO. There are more details, but these are the general summary.
Okay, excellent. And I guess I'll go over to Elizabeth. If you could quickly tell us a little bit about, your background and what you do.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's really a privilege and a pleasure, and especially to see such a packed room. So congratulations on bringing so many dynamic people together. My background has been entirely in the space where societal change and communications meet social media. I started at Google and YouTube and Facebook back in California in 2007, 8, 9, 10. Moved over to London in 2011 to build out the politics and government division for Facebook. So I spent a total of 8 fascinating years at Facebook. Something that started to bother me, though, during my time at Facebook running the politics and government team, where it was my job to train world leaders and government leaders and diplomats on this space, is I realized, these individuals have the biggest opportunity they've had in the history of civilization to have conversations with people at a scale that would have, without, of course, connected technology, been completely impossible. That's a really, really, really exciting time to be in history. And I think what's so sad is that, generally speaking, there's so little of that conversation actually taking place online. Why is that? What can we do to do more? How can people like the people in this room be the role models, be the leaders that we need to pioneer this space? And that's what I'm most passionate about through the work that I'm doing with the Conversational Century.
Thank you very much for sharing. And I guess over to you, Dima, to talk more about AJ+.
Right. Who does not follow AJ+? Wow. What? You have 1 minute to do that. Well, AJ+ is a revolution within Al Jazeera, but it's also been a revolution in the world of media. And it's actually my own story with Al Jazeera, because I came from traditional television. I was a traditional reporter that would show up on the news and tell you all these lengthy reports about what this president said and what this happened and that happened. And I completely transformed myself into a social media person, just like AJ+ became this new way of communicating, basically the same thing, just shorter, nicer, and definitely funnier, even when it's serious. And that made AJ+, with the format that it used and the way that it used Facebook and Twitter, YouTube, natively, that made it go really, really quickly into the top Facebook publishers in the whole world. So in the United States, AJ+ is competing with Now This, with BuzzFeed, and definitely surpasses many times CNN and Fox News on social media. And that's something that we made out of Qatar, and we never thought we would make this kind of success, and then we turned into the other languages. So that's the story of AJ Plus today, is one of the most influential social media publishers. In the Arab world, we have the highest views on our Twitter account in Arabic, although we only have 200,000 followers, which is less than my own followers. And on Facebook, we're definitely beating it in Espanol and in English.
All right. Yeah, well, I think that's worth applauding. So I'm only going to be asking a couple of questions because I want to give the opportunity to the people to ask the questions later on. All right? So the first question is actually to Sheikh Saif. And basically, I want to ask, what can you tell us about the events that took place here the end of May? And what are the latest details that you can share around the hacking situation?
Thank you, Khalifa, for that question. I would first want to apologize for being on my phone. We just announced that His Highness will be giving a speech on Qatar TV at 10 p.m. tonight. So please, yeah. And thank you. And of course, the speech will be on Qatar TV and broadcasted to other channels.
It's actually rude at this event not to be on your phone.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
So just to explain the whole issue, of course, this is not new to us. This is basically just a movie playing back again. The exact same situation happened in 2014. Maybe not the same methods used in 2017. And of course not through the media. So we noticed a media campaign around mid-April, or actually from October 2016 on and off. But from mid-April we've noticed a few articles that came out. It was on a very specific topic, the topic of counterterrorism, and that Qatar is not doing enough and all of that false information. So at the same time, of course, there was nothing official being transferred to us, whether from the council, from the GCC council, or from the countries. And we had several meetings. His Highness was there 1st of May, visiting King Salman on a bilateral visit. We had a bilateral committee meeting between Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and headed by our Prime Minister. And we had, of course, the US Riyadh summit. So in none of these events, anything was transferred. And of course, me as Qatar's counterpart when it comes to communication, we have our counterparts in these countries. Throughout the period, no one said anything. So on the 20th of May, just the day of the US Riyadh summit, the GCO released a statement saying that, of course, there is a campaign against us, and this campaign is focused on terrorism and the US media mainly. We did that for two reasons. First, to show that we are aware of what's happening, and second, whether it was the US government or the other government present at the US summit, not to take these articles into consideration as real facts. So that's from the media point of view. Now, regarding the hack, of course, the hack happened according to our technical team, on the 19th of April. A virus was placed on Qatar News Agency. They went in different periods and checked on the virus and updated it and all of that. Why 24th was chosen as a date, I'm not sure why. We still don't know. We don't have the answer for that. So at 12:13, the statement was placed. I found about it 2 minutes later. We usually find out about it because Qatar News Agency sends us messages. This was not sent through the message. I found out in Al Arabiya News, and I know for certain, from a protocol perspective, we don't release any statements anytime during the evening, unless a meeting happened in the evening. And so I read the first 3 paragraphs, and everything was fine, the first 3 paragraphs. Then they started talking about Iran, then Hamas, and Then I was a bit confused, what's happening. So the first thing I did is contact, of course, the security. Then I found out they were aware a few minutes before. So we did a statement. We released it at approximately 1:03 a.m., around 45 minutes, 46 minutes. And we communicated with Al Arabiya and Sky News Arabic. They did not respond, if I can put it lightly. They did not respond to any of our communication. So we of course tried to communicate. Then we saw the news out on the Saudi news agency and UAE news agency and Bahrain's news agency. So we communicated with them. Now the funny thing that happened was at 1:30 the Saudi news agency removed the fabricated statement and placed the government communication statement. That lasted for 20 minutes. And they removed it again. So here we got the final indication that this is happening, and this is very orchestrated, not from the journalists, not from these news outlets. It was very coordinated. Actually, just to be more correct, Bahrain News Agency didn't place it. They decided not to, and I think the guy was removed the second day. He was, I think, either promoted or fired. It wasn't clear. But they obviously didn't like that was not placed just after midnight. So we just shifted all our focus to other media outlets. GCC, we just didn't focus except for Kuwait and Oman. And of course, you saw how the events came. It was basically all the information, all communication, even the official communication, was transferred through mainly two entities, Al Arabiya and Sky News Arabic. That was for the public, and for us as government, no news was transferred until June the 5th, of course, and when the blockade took place. And then Kuwait, of course, got involved in trying to mediate the whole situation.
So everybody, I'm going to be using the word fake news. Fake news is either a word, that you either agree with or you are strongly against. And I'm going to ask Dima from Al Jazeera's point of view. So now that we know the story, we know the timeline, from Sheikh Saif, how has Al Jazeera used social media to, one, obviously share the truth and also combat the fake news that's out there?
Well, to combat any fake news, you have to have credibility. And that's not something you build overnight. This is something that you build with your audience over years of hard work, of showing them that you care about their point of view, that you care to tell their stories. And if you're going to talk about Al Jazeera's influence on social media, then you have to divide it into the pure digital products like AJ Plus and our Snapchat account, for example, and Al Jazeera's other broadcast products that are reproduced for digital use. And both have their influence, but they have different audiences and different ways of communicating the same. Now, Al Jazeera, to be honest, and again, I always reflect on my story because I feel Al Jazeera's story is always my story and vice versa. We found ourselves as individuals, but also as a media organization, being the story when we are telling the story. And we found ourselves being threatened and attacked and being the story itself, because one of the first things that were communicated on social media was that the countries blockading Qatar were going to ask for the shutdown of Al Jazeera. So here you are the media organization, you're the journalist, and you're thinking, they want to shut us down? And you're reporting on the story, and you still want to be professional and objective. But how can you be objective when this is about you? This has become subjective. So this was the challenge I think, for all of us to think every day how we can continue to be the credible voice that we are while we are being attacked. Like, I don't know any other media that's been attacked like this ever, not in the history that I've studied, where actually entire states with their entire propaganda machines and ministers and influencers and even people are attacking a television network. yes, it was quite, it had to be like war in a way because Al Arabiya and Sky News Arabia, as Sheikh Sef said, were constantly bombing Qatar and Al Jazeera, and influencers were used in the region sometimes against their will, and I know that because they apologized to me in the DMs about having to do it. They are attacking us personally as individuals because we work for Al Jazeera, and Al Jazeera trying to break Al Jazeera's credibility. So yeah, it's been a very interesting experience. I think it's in those kind of situations that you grow into something else, that you learn to be stronger, and that you find ways to tell stories. Now, today on AJ Plus, for example, the attacks have like died down a little bit, but there were days where 24/7 it was just bots and you know, electronic armies attacking our account non-stop. It was just like you can't keep up with the attacks. And even on me personally, for example, I'd open my Twitter timeline and it would be horrific, full of pictures of me with God knows who, telling stories, things I wrote in 2011 about Saudi Arabia or about the Emirates, telling my followers that I am this, that I am that. It was just incredibly orchestrated to attack people and institutions.
Okay, so this is, I'm going to ask you a question in a second, Elizabeth, but just touching on that again, Dima, like you were talking about how you personally were attacked just because you were a part of Al Jazeera. Now, everybody here has haters. We all have haters, right? I have haters, we all have haters. How do you deal with that? Because I know it's oversimplifying.
Yeah, no,
you know?
I learned, I used to respond, when I first started, I used to spend my time responding and being very nice and very polite, and they would be like threatening me. When I was back in Venezuela as a correspondent, it was also like very dangerous to work in that environment. And people would write on social media, we're going to kidnap your son tomorrow morning when he goes to school if you do not stop tweeting about this. And you really think about it and think, what if this person is real? What if they are going to kidnap my son tomorrow morning? And they can. It's Venezuela. You can pay somebody $100 and they will kill somebody for you. So I'm sure it costs less to kidnap someone. So yeah, should I respond or should I not respond? And I'm sure all the women here know that attacking women is different to attacking men. So yeah, I'm sure you've all been through it and you will continue going through it, because they will attack your honor, your family, your virginity, your husband, your life, your love life, your everything. They will make up so much stuff and they will tell you they have photos and videos and you have no idea who these people are. And I suppose they do this to every person that they want to attack who is female, because they know. I just completely ignore them and continue doing exactly what they don't want me to do. Once you do this once and nothing happens, because they're just people online trying to scare you, then you get the courage to do it over and over again, and then they stop. And somebody else will come, but then they will stop too. And you just see through the hate and look for other things that you want to see. And I don't know, I understand where they're coming from. They're either paid or they really hate me or whatever. I don't have time for them. I continue doing what I need to do. And that's the only thing I can do to combat
So I
them.
think that's a very powerful message, right? If we all want to do what we want to do, and we're not going to let anybody stop us. We're not going to hurt other people. We're not going to let other people hurt us. So I think that's a really strong message, yeah.
And one more thing I've always done is I've never blocked anyone in my life. Never. They write all kinds of stuff. Never. I think the moment that you start blocking people, and I respect everybody who has to do it because they can't bear it, is the moment you stop seeing the full picture. And I want to keep seeing the full picture with all its ugliness, with all the bad and filthy stuff that's in it. Because when I walk on the street, I see the filth and I see the good stuff. And I need to do that on social media to stay sane and to know exactly how to write my message. So I never block anyone, although they threaten me, they say bad things, they whatever. And if you block them, they will create another account anyway.
Absolutely.
So you waste your time chasing them. When you don't need to chase them, they will keep chasing you.
There's an expression, was it, it's better to have the enemy that you know than the one that's hidden, or something along those lines, right? Yeah.
Yeah, keep your enemies closer.
Yeah. So you always want to know what's going on. Yeah. Yeah. Was it Thomas Jefferson? Okay. Well, since you have filled in the gap for that, I wanted to ask you a question in regards to the crisis. Yeah. So we've talked about the situation. We've talked about how individuals and also of how this has been orchestrated against companies like Al Jazeera. Do you think that this crisis has been unique in the way that it's been taken to the public domain rather than through diplomatic channels?
Well, I think what's fascinating about today's world, with a crisis like this one, is we're really starting to see such an interesting relationship between the news and people's reactions to the news. And I think that's probably the most exciting realm of social media today is, I refer to this phenomenon as the primary source revolution, which is that people increasingly read now a headline in the news and then think, what's the information behind what I'm reading? Where can I go to get the original source? Now, news agencies have already, in a way, started to anticipate this. You mentioned the website seeming old school. Well, old school websites, now link pretty much every piece of information that they give with the link to kind of where the trail of that information comes from. You know what I mean? It sometimes can be visually a bit distracting. But if an organization online is reporting on some kind of press conference and there's a video of that press conference, that link will be embedded within the article. So what is happening to consumer and public behavior is increasingly audiences, digitally connected audiences, are more curious about what's behind the news than the news itself. Where I think that's really, really, really powerful, actually, is that it gets us beyond a world where everything that is reported and digested has to be interesting, to a realm where sometimes you're reading something because it's useful. So much of headline business is built around being interesting enough to grab people's attention. But in the online social media space, so much content is genuinely useful to people, even if it's not actually, quote, a news-making piece of information. Interestingly, in my experience, it's been actually organizations like police forces around the world that have been the earliest adopters to understanding this phenomenon. They were dealing with fake news long before diplomats were understanding and wrapping their head around what fake news online actually meant. We saw this back in 2011. If anybody was living in London at the time, you might remember there was this weird kind of random rioting that just sort of spontaneously started to take place on really well-known streets in London, high streets, shopping streets. And it caused a huge kerfuffle because it was basically the first time the government was trying to figure out what they did when something like this broke out online, etc. So what happened as a result of that is all of the police organizations across the UK started to realize that they needed to be in the space where rioting, where rumors about rioting were taking place. And Dima very well mentioned it takes a lot of time to build a really good crisis communications plan. Sometimes for authorities, that means explaining what's going on. Sometimes it also means being the first person out the box to say, we actually don't know. We don't yet have an answer. So I think often social media puts us in this world that we think everything has to move super fast. It doesn't. This isn't a speed game. This is a space game. You now have the space to explain to people when it's too soon to tell, when you're not really sure what's going on, when you don't yet have all of the facts. That builds a trustworthy relationship with the people who are waiting to hear from you what the official recommendation from an organization might be, and what's taking place in the meantime. And because this is all taking place online, no editor of an evening news program or of a newspaper is saying, well, we don't have space to cover that. You can really own your space in having the kind of ongoing relationship, ongoing dialogue with with the public that you need to have in order to help everybody wrap their heads around the issue.
And have you seen what's happening to Qatar? Have you seen this happen before?
Yes. I mean, obviously each crisis is different, and each reaction is different. But I think one of the most fascinating conversations in the space of crisis comms that I saw was after the Fukushima disaster in Japan. For a while, the Japanese government and the American government were meeting to discuss how big the nuclear zone should be to make the official recommendations to people as to whether they should leave. And the gentleman, the American guy who was running the social media channels at the time, said to me, you know, Elizabeth, the biggest mistake we made is when we didn't have official information because the meeting was taking place and the Japanese and the American authorities didn't agree, so we didn't know how this was going to pan out. The biggest mistake we made is we didn't say anything because we didn't know. In hindsight, that then caused people to think that perhaps, you know, the diplomatic community had just forgotten about them or was just choosing not to share information. He said, in retrospect, what we really needed to do is actually, you know, get out much sooner and say, hey, this meeting is taking place. We're not sure yet what the official recommendation would be, but we'll keep you posted. And then essentially do that every 20 minutes. I think any crisis moment, and you well highlighted this, there's a period where you don't actually know. You know, you're reading something, you're thinking, wait, where the heck is this coming from? What's going on? What's the source of this? Almost the best thing you can do for your public communications effort at that moment is share to people that something fishy seems to be going on and you're not sure what it is, and you'll keep them posted. Okay. Because that immediately gets people knowing that you've got their back.
Right.
But it might take a while to get to the bottom of a complicated issue.
Okay, so you've been talking about the importance of getting out there and talking to the people and just sharing whatever it is that you do know or don't know. So I'm going to go back to Sheikh Saif and ask a question in regards to a piece. We're talking still about fake news, but there was a piece on Doha News yesterday that was saying that Qatar is guilty of sugarcoating the news in its media. So much so that anything critical in the independent media now gets dismissed as fake news. So what are your comments on that?
The article you're mentioning, I think I read it, the one yesterday by Victoria, and to me it's actually a quite interesting article. She does have some important points, but what she doesn't draw on, I mean, the specific point that we are currently in a crisis, and this crisis, they have chosen to mix the politics with the social fabric and just use every advantage they can, not thinking that they will affect normal citizens, expats, break up families. So the local newspapers in any country will reflect what society thinks. We see that in certain crises, whether it's in the US, whether it's here, whether it's in Europe. So the local newspapers are only reflecting what society have united around, which is His Highness the Emir, of course, and the whole situation. So I think, as I said, she has some important points, but she does not include this point, and this point is very important because of what I said. You know, we've seen it in different crises around the world, whether it's terrorist acts and activities, whether it's other types of crises. You see the people coming together, and you see their local newspapers just reflecting on that unity.
So I think definitely it's very important for us during this crisis times, you know, to be positive, because it's up to us as the different influencers and community members to, you know, share positive messages. But I also think it's good.
I just want to add one more point, yes. Not about the article. When this whole thing started on the 24th, of course, the fabricated statement was what triggered it, and it was the reason why the other procedures took place. And then they shifted the narrative to terrorism, and then they got, I think, mixed up in the middle. The important point to make is they did not take one thing into account. And you know, we've seen this before with the same countries. They do not take that the public is aware. They do not take that the public is knowledgeable now. Of course, Qatar being the first, we all brought a diverse education system. So you have an American system, an Arabic, a European, a Turkish, so French. So you have all these systems and you have all these universities. So you want to educate, you want the public to be educated. And, some of those countries did the same. But yet you don't want them to be aware. So I think at that point they did not take into consideration, they thought that this would just go on very easily, and I think they were betting on this would finish in a few days. But that was a very important aspect that changed the whole calculation for the crisis.
We showed them what Qatar means.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd say another question that I want to ask, and this is actually for all of you, and I'll start again just to continue with you, Sheikh Saif. So now it seems that the blockading nations have backed down with at least one of their demands, which is to no longer close down Al Jazeera. So why do you think that is?
The whole demands thing, I think, came 4 weeks or 3 weeks at the end of the third week. So a few days after the blockade took place on June 5th, or more precisely, it came out after the State Department released a statement. After that, I think they quickly tried to send the US their list of demands and Kuwait. Now, why they rolled back on the demands, I don't know from the start why are they doing this. So I can't really say why they're removing this or that. But definitely the international pressure comes into play here. Definitely the public again comes into play, because at the start they said that this is about the statement, and then the narrative moved back to terrorism, because before that they were campaigning against us on this. So I think these aspects were taken into place. Now, the new list of demands, of course, I'm hearing in the media like you are, that they are 6, I think, or 5, or maybe, it's around that number, but we didn't receive anything official.
Okay, so nothing's been received.
To my knowledge, either is the Kuwait who are mediating, or the US, or the UK, or Germany and France, who have all supported the mediation efforts. I think this list of demands will keep on changing. I think they're between themselves a bit confused with what exactly they are looking for. And at the end of the day, we will not sit on the table, not discuss anything, except if the blockade is removed. And of course, the hack incident, or the blockade, the illegal blockade, or the forced relocation, all of these are illegal criminal acts. This will continue, whether we sit on the table, and of course, or if there are any political developments, all of these will continue to take its legal course. So we can, and it's our right as a country to do so.
So right now, as Qatar, we don't know what the 6 principles are that everybody keeps talking about.
I keep hearing them in the media, but I'm not sure. They still didn't. Send it to us officially.
Okay.
I think one has to do with the media, but I'm not sure, and I don't want to take things into consideration that are out in the media, not officially.
Okay. So Dima, what do you have to say about
on Al Jazeera? I think maybe they underestimated how big Al Jazeera is. It's not just Qatari or regional Arab. This is a world brand. And it's the only Arab media organization that has world reach. And they probably just did not expect that what the impact was of this demand of shutting down Al Jazeera was probably a great PR campaign for us in the end, because everybody found themselves writing articles about how Al Jazeera should not be shut down. The Guardian, the New York Times, any journalist would feel terrible thinking that one day a government would ask another government to shut down a whole media organization like Al Jazeera Network, which has 80 bureaus worldwide, which broadcasts in many languages around the world, and which is very influential in the US through AJ+. and obviously very influential in the Arab world. So I think when we launched a campaign, We Demand Press Freedom, and we were a little late because everybody else had started doing that for us all around the world. I think that showed the people who asked for those demands that it was going to be impossible to shut down Al Jazeera. And I believe that our viewership has definitely gone up. A lot of people who write on social media say, well, I stopped watching TV a long time ago, but with this news that they want to shut down Al Jazeera, I'm going back to watching Al Jazeera. And I believe this, in the end, I think it was very good for us.
Okay. So bad news can be good news, so become good. What would you like to say?
Yeah,
Elizabeth?
I mean, we've seen this so much in the California tech community, Google, YouTube, and Facebook. The tendency to use access to information or use access to certain media, outlets, and use shutting down that information as a bargaining tool. It never, ever, ever works. This is what is most of my years at Google, YouTube, and Facebook, I was on the public policy team. It doesn't work. In today's world, people are going to get the information that they're looking for somehow, some way. A lot of governments actually, we always found amusing at Facebook, that would try to turn off access to Facebook temporarily in their countries because they felt as though it was fueling something or another. They actually then, the government itself would use Facebook to communicate this information to people because they knew that people were using workarounds to still get access to, to Facebook. So you would see this bizarre loop whereby officially the government says, no, it's blocked, but then they're also officially using these channels because they know that people in their country are still going to figure out how to get access anyway. Turning off access to information is one of the worst things that any country can do in a period of crisis. And the global community that is going to be representing freedom to express yourself, freedom of information. It doesn't matter whether or not you agree with those channels. Those channels, whatever they are, have the right to exist. To your point about, sometimes you don't agree with your own family. Look at the news media environment in America right now. It's on the point of breakdown in today's America, and yet all of those channels are still going to continue existing, even if currently people just cannot watch a channel that they disagree with because the situation has gotten so intense. So I have never seen the ploy of turning off access to a certain kind of channel as ever actually achieving whatever it is that the government trying to use that technique is hoping to achieve.
So it never works.
It doesn't work.
All right, so those were some of the questions that I wanted to ask to get the ball rolling. Who has a question that they would like to ask any of these panelists? Oh, over here. Can we get the microphone over here, please?
Assalamu alaikum first.
Wa alaikum salam.
Sheikh Saif, can I ask about the core values of your office, which support you during this crisis to be in the highest level of values in media practice, in fact? Because we have noticed that Qatar kept in a higher level could be, and they have beaten the other, in fact, in this field fully. And it was an honor for any expats, as me, for example, to live in a country followed this core values. So could you tell us about it? Once I'm personally a researcher in the field of ethics and manners and practical parts of this point. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your question. As you said, we have certain principles that we try to adapt in every field, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's media, whether it's economics, culture, sports. So these key principles, of course, we always look at taking things in a more higher level, like you said, in a more, I would say, even adult level with some countries. So we try to always, of course, be as we are, deal with things in a very calm manner, deal with things in a very direct manner, and always be optimistic, and not assume things and especially if we're communicating with the public. We have a fourth section in our office, and that section is responsible in ensuring that ministries, that government entities respond to complaints, requests, whatever comes out of social media. And we always try to transfer these comments into adapting our day-to-day sort of procedures, or even to some extent law. Labor is a good example. The last 3 years, of course, we've developed the law, and we will continue to develop the law. So these principles, we try to adapt them as best as we can. Especially in a crisis like this, of course, we try to take the higher ground and treat things, as calmly as possible, and especially, of course, for our internal public. And of course, just to go back on our structure, we as I said, we as Government Communications Office sometimes need to come out by our own, but we try our best to deliver our messages through ministries. Depending on the topic, but of course now with the crisis, we are needed to come out more, because the battle is mostly a media, in the media field.
I'd like to actually comment what the gentleman over there said about Qatari media and values. I think we, as an observer of what's happening on social media, I saw how Qataris were attacked constantly by others from the region with swear words, with humiliation, with all kinds of things, and how Qataris always responded very calmly and very politely, never going down to the level of the people that are attacking them. And I think in the beginning I didn't understand why, but I think I know why now. That's because the other side has to go, when you're really angry and you have nothing to be angry about, you shout. You lose control. You don't know what to say. You just want to shut down Al Jazeera. You just want never to hear Qatar again. You don't want Qatar to do this, Qatar to do that. So since you don't really have content, you don't really have anything to say, you shout and you use swear words and you lose your temper. But when you actually know what you're worth, what you're worth, and you actually know what you stand up for, then you don't need to shout and you don't need to swear. And I think this was an opportunity for Qatar as a nation to discover a lot of things about itself, and the people of Qatar to know that they are different and they have qualities they probably didn't notice they had before. And I saw this every day on social media, how I was thinking maybe tomorrow it's going to get rougher, but Qataris kept calm and they were very polite all the time. And that's fantastic. And that's because they're not doing this because they're paid to do it. They're not doing this because they are forced to do it or afraid if they didn't do it, they'd be punished. They're doing this because they believe they need to do it. And I think that's so empowering. And I would love to see where Qatar is going to take this to the next level as a nation.
Does anyone else have another question that you would like to ask? You can ask anything that you like. Have your say. Ask them anything. Over here. Yeah.
My question is, I just want to know, what do you think it's for the three of you, for the post-crisis approach, since we're surrounded by all the countries, and I'm talking about the people, not the governments. If we're going to approach the people now, then they were brainwashed into hating us. They were brainwashed into thinking that we're the evil ones. How are we going to take that and change their point of views, especially since they locked all kind of communication? That's it.
Who would like to answer that question?
Well, I can at least start. I mean, I think it kind of builds really nicely off of this idea of how it is that the role of the individual citizen is playing out in foreign policy circles and in diplomacy internationally today. So, it's almost as though we're entering an era now where each of us are unofficial ambassadors of our countries. in a way more powerful way than we ever have been before. You go back to a time in history when only the elite would travel, so the elite maybe represented their countries, but not your average citizen. Then we entered a wave of more of a democratization of travel, where people could go and study abroad and take family vacations. Now, in a social media world, every single connected individual is an unofficial ambassador of their country, or of their environment, or where they're from. But what fascinates me is that the official foreign policy community hasn't yet quite woken up to harnessing that power. The best way now to handle this situation is actually, I would say, less at the authority diplomatic level and more, as you describe, at the citizen-to-citizen dialogue level. But I think, like anything, any kind of movement for change, you need some kind of marching orders. You need somebody, maybe it's ILQ. You need some kind of organization helping people to say, look, when you're representing yourselves or our country online, we need you, do this to help us to share this message. One of America's prouder moments in history would have been the post-World War II period, and rebuilding its relationship with Germany, where, essentially the US government made a very concerted effort to say, rather than punish the Germans for World War II, we need to start over again, but that's going to take all of us. And so all kinds of programs were built in terms of, exchange programs, study programs. I've even benefited from that, spending a week learning how foreign policy made is in DC with a group of Germans. I mean, that is still going on decades later, that kind of relationship. So it takes that kind of understanding of the balancing act between your official voices of the government and your unofficial voices of volunteers who are representing this place. But I think really bringing that down into the values and helping to raise awareness of people that every single time your voice is out there on social media, people are going to have an opportunity to learn from you about what it is that you stand for. And that's not going to play out in every moment of our lives, but we do need to think about that, actually. And I don't think that our foreign ministries have yet gotten really good at understanding how to harness that and what that can mean for them.
Does anybody want to say anything?
Back to what I said before, I think keep doing what you've been doing, being tolerant, being open, listening to the other side, whatever their point of view is. And I think what Qatar needs to do is keep building internally. And also, obviously, since it discovered that it has a lot of friends all over the world, keep working on that. It's going to take time for this to be cleaned up with the people, because you said the people, and that's the most dangerous part of this crisis. But I think people are not stupid. You've got part of the people who are really brainwashed, who are ignorant, but who will follow the trend if it changes, because they don't have real information. But you have a portion of people who may be silent now, and they'll be silent for a while because they are silenced, because if they say what they really think, they will be punished for it. So they probably going to stay silent for a long time, but when time comes, they will be your best partner to work on rebuilding this partnership again with the neighboring countries. And of course, it's the same tribe and the same blood and the same culture, so it won't be that difficult once those barriers actually are broken. I think the best thing to do is not to stop and think about it, rather to continue walking and doing what you're doing and become stronger from inside, because that's what is going to make Qatar stronger outside.
Well, first of all, thank you for your comment. I think what you brought up is the most important point in all of this. The social fabric in the GCC has, I think this is the first time in history where a disagreement, a very big disagreement between governments involved, every part of society, and every part of society was targeted. Of course, this issue affected a lot. I mean, all of you probably heard some of the stories. We've seen the reports. I've seen thousands of cases, and this might go up to 13 to 13,000, affect 13 to 14,000 people, with different, whether it's family, whether it's, working here. I mean, one Qatari citizen who's married and living in the UAE, he's never lived in Qatar for 25 years, and they just told him to leave, and he has no properties here, he has no income here, and this is one case, and so that will take. That's something we're really, as GCO, thinking about since the start of the issue. This will take a lot of time. This is obviously a decision by them that they took. This is not something they just did randomly. This was a decision at the highest levels that got implemented. I don't know whether it was thought of. I don't think it was thought of a lot once they did it, because then they started backing down a few days later with the support of some, of course, governments from outside the region, and other Arab, of course, states. Kuwait was the first in supporting and just toning down from that side. So the scar has been done now. It will take a time, and I think we'll need everyone to work on it from society. But thank you for bringing that up. That's actually, I think, the most important issue that will take some time to resolve. I don't think you can do. There isn't a manual for that, because, as I told you, this is the first time in the GCC's history where this happens. We can use examples, of course, from the past to resolve this, but this will take some work to help. I mean, resolve completely.
So just in the interest of time, I guess the one last question that I have for you, Sheikh, to share with everyone here, because you said that it's a responsibility of society. What's that one message that you want to share with all of these influencers? How can they help the situation?
Well, first I would like to thank you all, of course. Our office and me personally, I notice the work. Of course, we see how everyone reacts through social media, and we want that, of course, to continue in a it's it's an individual decision at the end of the day. We do not try to say what you can't and can do. It's your own personal decision. We just try to push the positive out of it, and so definitely continue what you're doing. Definitely, Khalifa, this should be an annual thing. More from the government will definitely be involved in such events. I also want to inform you, of course, Qatar will be, we are currently working in making our media law even more flexible, and a lot of news will be coming out soon, and a lot of media outlets will be coming in soon to Doha. And we will try to make it as flexible as possible, because this was also another lesson in of course, in this issue. So we will be doing, of course, working on the law, and even working on building a sort of media hub, a social media hub, to promote this, this field more in the Arab world, because we definitely need it. And just one more issue to point out, and of course, something that you all know. The issue with social media now, you have all of these like social media, if I can say it, I'll call it that way, social media sort of armies that are taking over the sort of and the part of the news. I mean, and that's something that we really need to work on. And that's something, of course, that we saw in this crisis that caused a lot of confusion with fake news. So that's something I think that we all should also notice and should all focus on. So thank you.
I think that needs a round of applause.
Thank you.
And you all have some exclusive news right now that is, I'm sure a lot of people are excited about. I know that we would like, a lot of you might have some questions that you'd like to ask. Of course, the panelists are going to be, oh, yes?
Hi, I've been waiting for, okay. Sure. I couldn't see me. So it's fine. I wanted to ask this question to His Excellency Sheikh Saif and Dima Khatab about this. Have you been seeing the social media in the Middle East right now? I want to ask you, are like the disability community, the beauty community, are these people kind of playing a role in showcasing that, somewhat helping solving the crisis in between the community? As even on my social media that I have the UAE flag, I have the Qatar flag, and I had a lot of hate from UAE that why do I have the Qatar flag now, right? And I've been trying to communicate between them, okay, this is political, but don't hate the community, don't hate the people. Keep it political. But do you think these bloggers, any social media influencers are kind of play the key role of keeping the peace between people? And also in Qatar, the social media influencers in Qatar, is it their duty to promote the diversity of Qatar, the positivity of Qatar, the good project that Qatar is doing, like Qatar Charity? They got like online harassed that they're doing something horrible. And is it the duty of us, people in the media, to promote that Qatar is doing well, they're doing good for their people, and they're doing good worldwide? Is it the duty of people in the media in Qatar to promote this right now in this crisis? And how much impact can they make using their own social media? Even beauty bloggers, is it their duty right now educating the youth, other than beauty, about what Qatar is doing? Because a lot of media people here, they have people all around the GCC following them, and I feel like they can use their social media platform to keep the peace between people and promote the positivity about Qatar. Do you think they can bring this impact? Even if they're little small beauty bloggers, or even from the disability community, do you think they can make the impact in bringing the peace?
Everybody who's on social media, and you all are.
Guys, please don't, I'm sorry to interrupt. Please don't cut the balloons and release them. Please asking you kindly, yeah?
Everybody who's on social media knows that to influence people, you need to tell them something that they will not hear from anyone else, the same way that you do. So each one of us is special in their own way, but not everybody knows what is it that they're special about or what is special about them. So whatever it is that makes you different, whatever it is what you will use to influence social media followers in any way possible. I don't see myself that all social media people in Qatar who are influencers should turn into a propaganda machine. That's not what they should become, because then they will fall into the trap of what the other side wants them to become. I think what they should do is continue to tell their stories, whatever they may be. Your story from Qatar, whether it's about a balloon or a water or a cow farm that you are building, or planting herbs and vegetables like I am now in my own garden, is a message about your life in Qatar. And whether it's directly or indirectly telling a story of how Qatar is coping with this situation, then it will contribute to whatever you want it to contribute to, without doing it directly as propaganda. So I would say all the communities should participate, even beauty, you said fashionistas, for example. We'll continue talking about fashion in Qatar. This is good for Qatar, even if you don't go around saying, I love Qatar. It's already a positive message out of Qatar that will do the trick even better than you doing direct PR work.
Do you want to say a comment? Yeah.
So, as I said, of course, thank you for the question first. At the end, it's your own choice what to write and what not to write. So it's your own choice to write and what not to write in the media. We will never, do like some other governments do and get involved. I'm even worried saying the words, because if I say them and someone uses the video in another way. We look at things differently in Qatar. We look at things even before social media came out. Our newspapers were always, the people writing, contributing to newspapers, they always had their own opinions. They always wrote about, wrote about what they felt. And this is now, of course, reflected but in social media. Maybe the lines to us in Qatar would be, for example, insults. We wouldn't want, because we take that seriously, insulting, someone on social media, insulting someone else on social media, or any other person in society. So that, that might only be our sort of, our red line when it comes to social media or any other form of media. Other than that, of course, it's the person's own choice. Yes, we do want to see everyone in the community getting involved, and I think we're seeing it already. People focused on different things, whether it's fashion, whether it's anything else. They've all turned, I think, into politicians during the last month, and I think that is something. Actually, it's nice to watch. I mean, I'm talking from a personal point of view. I mean, I watch a lot of people, probably most of the people in the room here. I would definitely, want to encourage that more and more. And that's what we're trying to reflect in our current media law, and trying to sort of readapt it to include social media in a certain way.
All right, so thank you very much, everyone. I think we dragged on just a little bit too long, but one round of applause for our panelists.